Okay, thank you for joining me for the Jerome Mentorship information session. I am going to go through just a bit about MCBA first and then get into the application process and what happens if you are accepted into the program. And then there'll be time for any individual questions at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and share slides. Okay. If you have any questions during this, I'm also fine for you to put it in the chat or interrupt me with since we're not too big of a group. Okay, so a little bit about MCBA if you're not familiar. We are the largest book art center of our kind, celebrating the book as a dynamic contemporary art form that takes many shapes. And MCBA's mission is to ignite artistic practice, inspire learning, and foster diverse creative communities through the book arts. Generally, what we do is we create access to specialized book arts tools, equipment, and knowledge, support interdisciplinary artistic development, expand opportunities for people who have been historically underrepresented in the field, and present exhibitions and educational programs that promote innovation and create connections around the art of the book. We are located in the Open Book Building on Washington Avenue in Minneapolis. Here's the lobby of the building where we have the coffee shop, if you're familiar. We have a shop that has an artist consignment program with over 300 artists, both locally and internationally. The consignment application app is open if you make art that you would like to sell in our shop. So that's another opportunity that we have right now. We have a main gallery space. Here is an image of a past exhibition. The Jerome Mentorship program ends with accumulating exhibition. So here is some past images from Jerome mentees in their exhibition. This is Surya Kuth's piece. This is D'Angelo Christian's work and Leah Klister's work. They were the Jerome mentees the time before this past time, so 2 times ago. Here they are. And then this is from our exhibition this past fall with our most recent Jerome mentees. This is Gabby Estrada's work, Drew Arrieta's work, and Yasmin Yassin's work. Here is Gabby with their work. Yasmin with their work. They made a cranky box as a book. And then Drew with his piece. Um, Another exhibition opportunity we have at MCBA is our Outlook Gallery, which faces Washington Avenue 24/7. We will have another call for exhibitions for this space next year. So our studios, when you're thinking about applying, so you're aware of what we have. So we have a 12,000 square foot space. We have our shop, library, and then we have our studios. So we have a letterpress studio with Vandercook presses to print type. Hand presses, we have an etching press as well for relief work, a show card sign press, and a polymer plate maker. We have a bookbindery, so we have board shears and guillotine to cut paper, foil presses, paper drill, book cradles, sewing frames, book presses, spiral binder, backing press. Screen printing studio with dark room, exposure unit, power washer, everything for screen printing. And then paper making, we have hydraulic presses, a restraint dryer, paper beaters, felt molds, decals, everything you need for paper making. And then we also have equipment for marbling, engraving, calligraphy, alternative for photography, and some more things. If you don't know what all of this means, that's fine. That's also the point of this program. But just so you can start thinking about what your project might entail and what in the studios you might want to utilize. Sorry about my dog, Wally. Okay. This is our letterpress studio. So these are our Vandercooks. Letterpress printing. paper making, paper marbling. You can see marbling happening. Our bindery. Okay, and now getting into the application. So the application deadline is Sunday, August 9th at 11:59 p.m. That is submittable. It closes automatically at 11:59 p.m. So late applications are not accepted. So the Jerome Book Arts Mentorship is open to all Minnesota-based early career artists. I'm going to get into more on what that means. The Book Arts Mentorship is an artist development program aimed at introducing book arts to early career artists whose primary medium is in another discipline. There are many reasons to explore book arts as a new artistic medium. As a highly malleable and versatile form of expression, book arts extend the possibilities of other art forms. And it's really very open what you can do with this program. You can create a conceptual space, experiments with sequence, visual or verbal narrative, use book art forms to explore, document, or re-examine work produced in other artistic disciplines. So here's again, the application closes on August 9th. The orientation is set for September 26th, and that is when the program starts. And then the mentorship period runs a little over a year, September 26th to November 12th, 2027, which is when the exhibition opens. So this program is funded by the Jerome Foundation. So the Jerome Foundation seeks to contribute to a dynamic and evolving culture by supporting the creation, development, and production of new works by early career. Formerly, they use the language emerging artists. The foundation makes grants to early career artists and those nonprofit organizations that serve them in the state of Minnesota and the 5 boroughs of New York City. The foundation's highest priority is to support artists early in their careers who create work that is or has the potential to be compelling, deeply considered, imaginative, or innovating and risk-taking. So this program is for early career artists. You have to be considered an early career artist. The Jerome Foundation defines that as within 2 to 10 years of experience. Obviously, people's careers do not all look the same. There are many reasons why people might pause, take a break, come back. So if you have specific questions about your career stage, I'm happy to answer that. But it is for early career artists who are generative artists. So it's sometimes a little tricky to define. So with the book arts mentorship, because it's for people who don't have experience in book arts, you can be coming from many different fields. So you could be a writer within the literary arts, other visual artists. You could be working with sound in some way, like music. This is the tricky part. The Jerome Foundation only funds what they consider to be generative artists. So if you were working in music, if you are the composer, they consider that the generative artist. If you are a musician playing others' compositions, they consider that being an interpretive artist and that they don't support that. So there is a difference. If there's also more questions around that, I'm happy to answer. Similar goes for like performing arts. If you are the playwright, they consider that as a generative artist. If you are an actor, they consider that an interpretive artist and they don't support that. Um, and because there can be many different things careers might look like, I'm happy to talk to anyone about specific questions. There are a few things that would automatically disqualify you from this program. So if you're an MCBA staff or board member, I know everyone in this info session isn't, so don't worry about that. Something else though, if you have received a McKnight Fellowship, you are not eligible since that is a mid-career fellowship. So the logic behind that is you cannot have considered yourself mid-career and then go back to consider yourself early career. If you have had a previous Jerome Book Arts residency or mentee, I know none of you in this info session haven't. And then something else is if you are tenure track faculty, um, they also do not consider that of being early career status anymore. Okay, so who is early career? Oh, somebody's in. So who is early career? So here's some ways to define it. So early career artists have done more than simply aspire to create a work in a given discipline. Early career artists have already created works and have an artistic practice. In the case of those artists who have been enrolled in degree training programs, works have been created in the period following their graduation, so it should not all be examples of work that was created by you as a student. An artist may be considered early career for multiple years. The program supports equally, and the Jerome Foundation supports equally people who are very early within the early career stage, and then people who are much later in that early career stage. Um, and then age is not a factor at all in determining an early career artist. And then early career status, because this is through the Jerome Foundation. It's based on the totality of an artistic career. So I get less questions with this program, but I do get questions in other programs. So like you could be an early career painter, but you've been making sculpture for 40 years. The Jerome Foundation still would not consider you an early career artist, even if you are early career in some aspects of your artwork and practice. Um, that's how I try to break it down in my mind. Okay, so what is book art? So book art is an interdisciplinary art form. MCBA defines book arts in a very broad and diverse sense. So we think of book art as a contained narrative that serves as a multifaceted method of communication. And then book arts may contain any of these elements of the family of processes of letterpress printing, screen printing, intaglio, paper decoration, box making, bookbinding, paper making, suminagashi or marbling. We consider all of those under sort of the greater umbrella of practices that might contribute to book arts, and that is what our studios support. So some different examples though of everything book arts can look like. It can be installation and sculptural based. It can use sculptural handmade paper, box containers. It could have something that has pages, like a novel, but it can really look like a wide variety of things. We also consider many aspects of digital and video arts to potentially be book arts as well. And for sure, zines we consider under the umbrella of book arts. Okay, so the application requirements are your letter of intent, work samples, artist statement, resume or CV, image description list, and proof of Minnesota residency. Um, and then what the panel looks for within these things. So your work samples should show the jury panel your artistic merit, your clarity and uniqueness of vision, and should have visual and written evidence for how the book arts would develop your practice. So use your work samples to help support why it makes sense for you to be going into book arts and working in book arts within this program. Your artist statement should explain who you are as a person slash artist, where your practice comes from, what your practice is about, its values, the materials you use. That is really your introduction as an artist to the jury panel. Your letter of intent should be about what you are planning to do in the program and why it makes sense for you and your practice to do this program. So answer questions like how do you see book arts developing your practice? Why are book arts needed in your practice? What skills in particular do you see yourself using? any specific project or ideas, and what is your vision. And even if you don't know everything exactly, I would be as specific as possible, or at least give some examples of where you see yourself going in this program, because the better the jurors can visualize you in this program and what it might look like, the more they will want to support you receiving this opportunity. And then your professional resume will show your artistic accomplishment to date. It is evidence of your early career status and also your commitment to your practice. Okay, a little bit more. So submit a current artist statement that speaks to the images you are submitting. Your images and statement should work together to support each other and create a view of you as an artist to your jurors. So you should not write a statement that's all about your writing practice, but then have images of paintings. Like they should work together and support each other. So if you're talking about your writing practice, submit work samples that are your poems, that are your writing, and vice versa. And I always tell people it is perfectly okay to also reference your images directly in your artist statement. The easier you make it on the jurors to understand this full picture and connect all of your materials together, the stronger those applications usually are. And then in your letter of intent, again, some more things to answer. I gave some examples, describe the future direction of your work. How will the mentorship programming benefit your practice? Why is this a pivotal moment in your practice where receiving this residency and completing the project will make a difference? Resume and CV, again, like the statement, please don't include your name on any of the materials as much as possible. We try to have this be as blind of a process as possible. Um, if there are questions, if anyone's applying as a collaborative pair, I'm happy to answer that. But you can just put both resumes into one file and have artist A and artist B, or name it something like that. Okay, you are having 10 work samples total. Um, and Springboard for the Arts is a great resource if you need to take images of anything. Samples should be considered. I try to tell people more is not always better. Like it's sometimes it's not better to show 10 different images of 10 different projects, but maybe show 4 or 3 projects and show multiple images of each. But also this depends what your practice looks like. And then your proof of Minnesota residency, you have to have lived in Minnesota for 1 year prior to the application deadline. You should be able to upload multiple files, but just make sure that if you're submitting a utility bill or something like that, that it is dated before August 2025 and not the most recent one. I have a couple people every year submit a recent utility bill, but it needs to show that you have lived here for at least a year. Okay, so program benefits and schedule. So you receive a $2,000 award for the purchase of materials, um, any other project costs. That is given to you. We do not ask receipts for it, but it should be, we don't ask for any proof on how you use that, but there will be material costs or childcare costs or other things that you will have to spend to complete this project and do this program. That $2,000 award is subject to any regular income tax laws. You will receive basic book arts training at MCBA through required workshops and trainings in letterpress, bookbinding, and paper making. You receive an educational stipend of $1,400 to be used for those required workshops, trainings. as well as sort of what I think of as your electives to gain the skills to do your project. That $1,400 is not paid out to you. We handle that all internally, so you will not owe taxes on that or need to worry about being paid that. You receive 24/7 access to MCBA's studios for 10 months. Um, you receive mentorship and support from MCBA staff through project meetings and critiques. We take 2 field trips, typically one to a local collection and a local book artist studios, and then recognition through a culminating public exhibition in MCBA's main gallery, which is professionally documented as well. And then also a 1 year membership to MCBA, which has all the regular membership benefits as well. Okay, so to get into what you will be doing in those required workshops. So after your orientation and at the orientation, if you are selected, you basically immediately start registering. We have you start registering for workshops. In some ways, you can like think of this almost as like a mini BFA program in book arts. So you can start learning the skills. So the required workshops are letterpress 1. You need to complete 1 paper making workshop, a bookbinding 1, a cutting equipment training, a paper beading training, and then book arts project planning, which will be in January 2027. So all of those workshops have different different amounts of hours. Typically, a lot of them are 6 or 9 hours, either like a full weekend day or 3 mornings or 3 evenings. You can look on our website and get an idea for like when we offer workshops so you can think about your schedule and if this fits in. This is a tentative schedule for the program. So we'll start with that orientation, and then about a month later, we'll have our first field trip. December, another field trip. Um, by March, we're already thinking about doing the public talks and presentations, in which you sort of introduce your practice to the community and talk about what you will be doing for your project. In May, we have the first critique with myself and a guest critiquer. And then you kind of have summer to work and take those like electives and other classes that you need. And then September, we start thinking about the exhibition already. So it's a lot packed into a year. And then beginning of November is the installation for the exhibition. And then Friday, November 12th, 2027, which is crazy to think about. That is when the reception will happen and the exhibition will open. How you can get involved in MCBA right now if you are interested in, we have workshops that are available. We have self-identified scholarship rates of 50%. Um, we also have studio labs, which if you have training and skills in any of these areas, offer, open studio time at a low cost and access to their equipment on Tuesday evenings and Saturdays. Um, yeah, and now it is time for any questions you might have. So let me know. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to just ask or put it in the chat. Taylor, yeah, I see your hand up.
Hi, thank you. This is very helpful. For
Great.
the submission of the work samples, is it okay then just to have it as you don't need it like collected together or anything, just like image files and then with the name of it on the image files, like
Yeah, that's
like
fine.
in a
You'll be
file
submitting them individually and submittable. So once you
in their
get in,
portal? Okay.
yeah, once you
Yeah.
get into the portal, that should be clear. So they don't need to be combined in any way. They're just like you'll upload like 10 individual files. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions? And if you think of anything after this, feel free to send me an email or set up a meeting. I know also sometimes people have individual scheduling questions or career questions that might be on a very case-by-case basis that you might not want to ask right now. So please, I am here to answer your questions and support these applications. Okay, anyone think of anything else? Otherwise, if there's no other questions, I am gonna close the Zoom, but please, you all seen me now. Feel free to reach out with anything you might need. Have a good evening, everyone.